The Rainbow Tower. Written by Alex Tymms. Illustrated by R H Stewart. Episode 18. Green. One moment, Jed saw the fist heading straight for him. The next moment, it had been deflected away. "Don't be an idiot, Graham," said the severe-looking woman as she let go of the man's arm. "He was going to talk." Graham looked daggers at her, but didn't say anything. Behind them, the Green Guards and scientists were struggling to tie up the enforcers. Even with their far superior numbers, the Greens were still having trouble. The woman stared at Jed. She reminded him in many ways of Mrs. F. Mrs. F, who had been taken by the mass. "Where's our water?" the woman demanded. Jed's head was in a spin. He couldn't think clearly. Where did he begin? There was so much wrong, he didn't know how to explain. Plus he had to hurry. Silas and the others, they were counting on him. It was all too much. "I did it," he blurted out. "What?" she asked very quietly. "I let the water out of blue. I had to drain the tanks. It was the only..." "See?" Graham roared. "He is one of them!" He stabbed a finger violently towards the enforcers, who, all bar the last one, were now trussed up with tough rope. "I say we give him some help getting back where he came from." He grabbed Jed's arm and tore off the recycling badge on it, which was just visible through the dirt and the grime. It revealed a clean, triangular patch of violet underneath. "The recycling chute should get him there fastest." Several workers surged forward and grabbed Jed, as Graham strode out in front with short, quick steps. They dragged Jed away from the liner along a path through the plants. At the far end, Jed could see the doorway out and chutes in the corridor beyond. "Listen to me," Jed pleaded. The woman stood aloof watching. Her face gave nothing away. "I had no choice. The mass was coming for the the brains in the tanks. It was the only way to set them free." They were moving closer and closer to the doors and the chutes beyond. Graham laughed as he stood to one side to let Jed and his captors through the doorway. "Well, you're as deranged as you are filthy. The sooner we're rid of you, the better." He smiled at Jed while his round little eyes gleamed. "You're going back to Violet to join the other rats down there." Jed glared back. He'd escaped the mass and enforcers, avoided falling to his death or being crushed by concrete countless times. So there was no way a red-faced little man with gloating eyes and a nasty smile was going to finish him off. As they moved down the corridor towards the chutes, Jed let himself go limp as if he'd given up. Out the corner of one eye, he saw the woman was still with them. This gave him a chance. As he relaxed, he felt the hands holding him slacken their grip a little. These weren't enforcers, but normal workers, and they decided this filthy boy wasn't going to be any trouble after all. When Jed tore out of their grasp, it was a complete surprise. "Stop him!" Graham roared. Jed didn't sprint or run, though. Instead, he tore open the pocket on the front of his overall and snatched out the phone, slapping it down on the corridor floor. "It's a bomb!" Graham yelled in fright as he covered his head with his hands. However, there was no explosion or detonation. Instead, the corridor was filled with lines of light. Tiny labels floated out to attach themselves to the display as the thin green filaments rotated slowly around Jed, who moved his hands, controlling it all. "Well, okay," Graham coughed. "So it's not a bomb. He's still going back to Violet, though. Come on!" And he made to grab Jed. "Graham, do be quiet." It was the woman who was studying the lines with interest. "Clarice," Graham began indignantly. "Enough," she said with finality. Jed silently thanked the architect. Without that stream of information from him, Jed would have never known his phone could do this. "I take it this is the plan of the tower," Clarice said, tracing her finger along one of the lines in the air in front of her. "Yeah," Jed replied. As he stood in the middle of this schematic, everything started to make sense. His muddled mind cleared, and he at last knew where to begin. The tower is part living structure, part concrete and steel. "Poppycock!" Graham exclaimed. Clarice shot him a dirty look, so he wouldn't say any more. "The main columns up the centre, that support the whole building, are bone," Jed went on, the image around him shifting to 4 huge central tubes. "Like tree trunks, they're thicker at the bottom than the top. They respond to the stresses on them by strengthening where they need to." It felt very strange to Jed, saying things that he understood but had never consciously learned. "The strong areas are here and here," he pointed to the plans. "They're cortical bone. Those areas where the bone needs to be lighter but weaker, like there, are made up of cancellous material." The woman nodded her head, as if what he said made sense. "The floors are like branches, held up again by being secured to the main columns." Again more nods. "The bone is kept alive and allowed to grow by a simple nutrient supply powered by a heart." This time Jed knew first-hand the image of the beating heart, which appeared between him and Clarice. "Why did you drain the water tanks?" she asked him. Jed met her gaze. Now she would listen. "Even though the building grows, the Red executives wanted more room for themselves." He didn't add that this probably included his parents. Instead, he then went on to explain about the retired and the mass that had grown in the waste. "Like a cancer," Clarice commented. Jed shrugged. His knowledge, like the plan, seemed to be confined to the original designs. "There's also something else," he said, and he described the biled-coloured tubes, tracing their path from the tanks in blue up to green. "That would breach our protocols," Clarice said. "If it's true, which I don't think it is," Graham had strode into the middle of the plans. "Those nutrient lines have saved our necks. Without them, we'd never have met our quotas. Swenson deserved his promotion for digging us out of that hole." "Swenson?" Jed asked. Hadn't Silas mentioned him? "He came here from Blue quite a long time ago," Clarice explained. "As Graham said, without him, there wouldn't be enough food to feed the tower. Well, until our quotas were reduced, but that was only very recently." First the enforcers, now the nutrient lines, Jed thought. Swenson had clearly been busy. Graham waved his hands in front of his face as if trying to push aside the lines. His hand merely passed through them all. "Look, this is all very pretty, but it proves nothing. Are we really going to let a fancy projector save his neck? He's too violent for Tower's sake, shiftless, lazy, and a liar like all of them down there." Jed was about to argue when something on the plan caught his eye. "Are all your plants grown inside?" he asked. "No, we've a couple of clouds parked through the glass where we keep most of them," Graham answered sarcastically. "What a stupid question." "What if I can prove you've been lied to?" "Well, of course we've been lied to," Graham snapped. "By you." "By the management," Jed said, trying not to lose patience. "Well, got another fancy drawing for that, have you?" Graham said, his voice rising. "Enough," Clarice said, but this time it didn't work. "Oh, come on," Graham shouted. "Let's stop this nonsense. Monsters. Talking brains. A living building. I've had enough, and frankly, have better things to do, like trying to keep our plants alive. This little sod has admitted he's guilty, so I say we throw him back where he belongs."
Thank you very much for listening to The Rainbow Tower. To see more of R H Stewart's excellent artwork, you'll find him on Instagram at roy.hootson.stewart. For Alex Tymms, why not try the novel OutCaste at ao3.com? Or, for something completely different, check out the Amier series on YouTube or at amier.com, also by Alex Tymms. The Rainbow Tower. Text copyright Alex Tymms. Illustrations copyright R H Stewart.
The right of Alex Tymms and R H Stewart to be identified as the author and illustrator of this work has been asserted in accordance with the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988.